Hello everybody, this is The Tube. Welcome to our very special two-part utopian dystopian special where we'll take a good gaze at our near future, the one we created and the one that is being created for us. Here we go. As part of the DLD convention in Tel Aviv, the Utopia Sci-Fi Festival has organized some really interesting events in cooperation with the Berlin Republica Conference, gathering smart people from all over the world to try and understand the social implications of the future right now. 3 of these smart people are sitting with me today, and we're going to talk about everything from designing the neighborhoods of the future to how we'll feel towards our robots. We have Luisa Prado, design researcher who's interested in speculative design and its politics. Good evening.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We have Katharina Darmul from Found Fair, a Berlin-based company builder. Did I say the name right?
You did.
Thank you. And Johannes Kleske, a strategy consultant and researcher, co-founder of a company called Third Wave. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's start talking about the future. We're seeing a lot of utopian versions of the future coming from tech companies. What do you 3 think about this vision that we're seeing? We will see it on our screens next to us all the time from commercials. It looks shiny, lovely, good, and better. Are these visions right? Katharina.
Well, first I would like to start that we talk about futures. Because as you were saying, we have different visions. Therefore, we have more like possible and plausible futures. And of course we have utopian ones, you have dystopian ones. And my angle at these very shiny ones is it's very tech deterministic. So it's the idea that technology will save us from everything. And I believe there are other solutions too. And we should not only look at the, as we think, easy one, like introducing some kind of new technology, but should also keep in mind that we are social beings and there might be social innovations which solve some of the huge challenges we are facing too.
Johannes, what's your take?
Well, the critical futurist Scott Smith always calls these company visions flat pack futures, and like the reference to the IKEA flat packs. I mean, they're basically the same as looking at an IKEA catalog and then buying like furniture that is like packed together, and you have to build it up yourself, and it never looks the way it looks in the catalog. Yes. I think that's exactly the same with these visions. They propose a vision of the future that is clean, that is without any problems. Everything works there, no problem with Wi-Fi, no problem with data or anything. So yeah, it's a vision, but not much more.
But you know, people are buying IKEA, for example. Yeah. It's working.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all have iPhones, we all have apps on our phones, we all use these apps, so there is something there that is working. It's not, the question is it the right future that is going to take us into a direction, or the right vision of the future that's going to take us into the direction that we as a society are comfortable with and actually want to go to? Or is it just a future of a few rich white boys?
What do you think? Who's owning this future?
Well, we were talking before about the weird future, and for me it really makes sense if you look at weird as in the white European futures, you know. And what I really agree with what Katharina just said and what Johannes said, and what I wanted to add, which I think is relevant to this conversation, is how looking at these things, these beautiful objects, these beautiful technologies, it sounds really beautiful and shiny and everything, but it's a very narrow vision of how these things come into being, because there's got to be somebody who's going to actually make these things. Somebody has to work in a factory. Somebody has to be able to make them. And if you're just showing the tip of the iceberg, you know, I'm really interested in what's beyond that.
So you know what? Let's check out Microsoft's vision, and then we'll talk about what they're missing, and maybe what they're getting right as well. Let's take a look. So, Johannes, what are they missing?
Fingerprints. I mean, I don't know. If I use my iPhone for like 3 hours, it looks like shit. It's like it's greasy and everything. And I don't know, like these futures where there's glass everywhere and you can touch and zoom and pinch everything. Do they have a whole army of low wage cleaners who go around and clean up after everyone all the time? So I mean, it's half joking, but that's exactly the problem with these visions, that they show a certain idea without the reality of it, the greasiness
but
of
are we
it.
missing something by only talking about, because in the end it might become our world, so it's a bit messier than in the commercial. But the question is, how is our future gonna look like? You know, if 10 years ago, I would say that we have a little computer, the iPhone, in our pockets, but in the commercial it looks shiny, but in reality it's greasy. Fine, but we still actually have, you know, a personal computer, another organ of our body, a digital organ. So let's ask it differently. What are they getting right?
Well, I very much like the first part because it was about education, and we all know that actually digitizing education in some way will help a lot of people because then it's scalable. So therefore, one beautiful concept that started actually yesterday is the Chiron University, which is the first digital university for migrants. You should definitely check it out. The Kickstarter started yesterday, so it will make knowledge accessible to a lot of people. So therefore, I mean, we saw some kids in the classroom who were, you know, working together instead of one teacher sitting right in front of them and just teaching them. So that's a vision that I like. The question is, whom is it accessible to? So who's going to have that fancy classroom? Because we all know how expensive this technology is. So the question is this beautiful future distributed in a fair way? So who has actually access, and aren't we just creating an even bigger gap by making like us in the Western world have this kind of stuff, and other ones are missing out on the basic things like having a book and a pen to write down their notes in school?
Interesting. Louisa, tell me a little bit about speculative design. What is it?
Well, it's an approach to design that tries to create objects, to use objects as ways to create conversation around certain things in society and culture in a near future. And this definition seems like a very interesting thing, and it's kind of what drew me to this approach. But I've been noticing my partner at my studio at Parigi and we've been talking about how narrow this vision is, precisely because of the things that I mentioned before. Because it also tends to focus a lot on the gadget, on the object itself, without understanding the implications that the existence of such an object might have, the impact that it might have in other countries, other people, you know.
Okay, that's an interesting complexity there. You know, looking at the future is pretty unsettling, but looking at the future as it was imagined in the past is downright hilarious. So let's take a break from our conversation with what Apple thought the future would look like in 1997, way back in 1987, before we get really, well, political.
A computer that talks is no big deal. A computer that really listens, that's a breakthrough.
I'm afraid I'll push the wrong button and damage something.
How long have you had this feeling?
Apple computers have always been friendly, but we've gone from friendly to understanding.
Good morning. This is October 5th, 1997. I have checked 4 wire services, scanned 8 magazines and 18 newspapers, and accessed the New York, Tokyo, and Paris databases. Here are 3 items you may be interested in.
Wow, so what do we think about that? That they didn't get it very right, but maybe they just didn't understand it's going to come 10 years, 20 years later. What do you think, Johannes?
I think they had like a good mix of where they got general ideas, I think, pretty well. I mean, if we look at how we interacting now with voice systems like Siri and others, who we basically help us to steer the machines. I find it always interesting, like they seem to have a huge problem. They're always anticipating a machine that anticipates, so that they always say, oh, so I already did this for you, and this for you, and this for you, never thinking of how much that might creep us out. And that's usually what's happening now. So when a machine tries to be really smart, or to be more precise, when a machine is programmed to act really smart, we get a little creeped out and don't know, because we don't know how it actually works and
Can
what
you
it's...
give an example of something that's already happening and relevant?
Not off the top of my mind, okay. But just in general, whenever I remember the first time when I used the taxi app and actually saw it coming and things like that, or then when now a pretty recent example, so new iOS version actually anticipates what app you want to open and actually puts that on the top of your on your lock screen. So, for example, if I put in my my headphone, then it will say, oh, usually when you put in your headphone, you also want to open Spotify. So here it is already. So this is not really creeping me out yet, because I actually quite good understand how it gets that knowledge. If it gets more complex,
be smarter than
exactly,
you, it creeps us out.
Especially if it combines different services, and we see that really good, I think, with something like Google Now, where it looks at your mail and everything. And then the moment I don't understand how does it know that, then it's going to get strange.
Katharina, in your work, you deal with trying to harvest new technologies to help social issues, yes. Such as finding solutions for refugees. That's a very relevant topic in our days. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so what we did, I went with 16 other people from Berlin and Greek startup scene, and like all entrepreneurs, to Samos in Greece. And we actually went there with a very open mind about how we can help refugees. But as we are very strong on technology and digital solutions, we said, okay, we want to find something. So we went there and we talked to the people. I mean, and we talked to people who just, kind of fell out of their boat, literally speaking. And we figured that the first thing after they had food and water was actually providing information. And the second thing they're asking is, I would love to get in touch with my loved ones back home, telling them that I did not drown like so many people in the Mediterranean Sea. So therefore, they need charging stations so they can actually charge their smartphones, which basically everyone has. And they need access to internet or SIM cards. And they are not granted access when they arrive at the harbor. So therefore, they sit there for hours without having any way to get information also to their onward journey, and that creates a lot of stress. And therefore, we came up with this concept of first contact, which provides the relevant information for every arrival spot in Europe. So that's the vision, starting in Greece. And we all know we can operate the system if there's no electricity and no internet. So therefore, we are currently thinking about solutions which can be implemented super easily with using the current infrastructure, and therefore actually asking for these telecommunication companies out there, for people who are providing electricity, to actually help us create this safe spot for the people where they can, get less stress because they can tell their loved ones they're safe and get information, because that's super relevant to them.
Yeah, because I think it's kind of hypocrite to think that in 2015, so only we need a charger and they need water and bread.
No, I mean, we all know, and I think we all read the stories that that the smartphone is the most important gadget or application that they use for their journey. It's quite often it's the last valuable thing they have. They sold everything else, and they're wearing the clothes they have on. Quite often they don't even have things to change, and the smartphone is the most important thing. Like orientation, getting information, getting in contact with a trafficker and other people.
Yeah, well, we can talk we can talk more and more, and I think we're going to do that in part 2 of the show. Thank you very much for this part. Thank you for watching. As I said, we're going to have a part 2 special coming up tomorrow. Goodbye.